rate.
Now, an uncomfortable subject we're about to talk about, stalking. This is National Stalking Week, and to raise awareness of all of this, the trauma, the psychological trauma of all of this, I'm joined very shortly by Alex Lovell. Alex is a BBC presenter of the BBC programme Points West, based in Bristol. She was harassed for 6 years or so by a man, 69 years of age. His name is Gordon Hawthorne. What started as greeting cards sent to Alex at the BBC escalated to him threatening her with extreme violence, rape. He was jailed January of this year, and before I talk to Alex, and I hope this doesn't upset her, but you have to hear this, listeners, you're going to hear a clip from his police interview, and the voice you're going to hear, first of all, is a police officer reading statements made or written by Hawthorne. Okay, here we go.
How does it feel, you now knowing that your stalker has already raped 6 women and that you, sweet cheeks, will be my next victim? I hope to be with you very soon from your stalker and soon to be your rapist. So how do you feel about yourself now that you've finally been caught?
Yeah. Well, I'm disgusted with what I've done. Like I say, it's a really obsession and pure fantasy on my part.
Well, the last voice you heard there was Gordon Hawthorne, 69 years of age. The police officer was reading his statement. The next voice you're going to hear is Alex Lovell, the subject of those threats. Alex, good evening to you.
Hi, Eamonn.
Alex, I really don't know where to begin, but I'm sure you must have thought, why me?
Yeah, I did. I couldn't believe that somebody could keep ramping it up to such a level. I mean, he says, you heard a little bit of then in his police interview, where he's basically saying, and he goes on to say more about this when he was interviewed, although I've not heard all of it, about how it was giving him a thrill. And so each time he did something, he felt he had to do something more than the time before. And up it escalated. And of course, it turns out that he was somebody who probably would never have hurt me. But the trouble is, for 2 years when it was very threatening, before that it was just very perverted, which is still bad. But for the 2 years that it was really frightening, I didn't know what he was, where he was, or anything.
But he was
it just
hurting
plays
you.
mind games.
I know you said he might never, but he was hurting you with those words, with those letters. He was hurting you, and there was one of them that sticks in my mind somewhere. He talks about being so close to you he could smell your hair.
Yeah, he said he was watching me outside of work, that he observed the way I was walking. He'd always watch me on air, so sometimes he'd write and say, oh, I liked this dress, and you'd think, oh, God, I'm not ever going to wear that dress again. So, yeah, it was omnipresent. It was interesting. I talked afterwards to a psychologist. She works for the Gloucestershire Police as an advocate for people who are being stalked, and she said a situation like mine where you don't know who it is, and even when you do know who it is, she calls it psychological rape, because you are pretty much going through it every day.
What do you think of him now? I mean, he's behind bars now, but what do you look at him as a sick man, a pathetic man, a danger to society? What do you think of him?
Oh, that's really interesting, because I think you go through lots of different emotions when you're going through court and being a victim, and I feel he was aware that what he did, and you heard in that clip, he said, I'm disgusted with myself. But he knew it was wrong, and even admits that he knew it was wrong while he was doing it. So I'm glad he's got a custodial sentence. For me, I would hope that while he's in prison, and I've been told by the victim support people that actually they will try and do some rehabilitation. Because it's not just being about locked up. It's about, if you've got an obsessive nature, it's about not coming out and then doing it to somebody else.
Yeah. Here's the thing about being you, of course. Thankfully, you've come through this physically unharmed. There is the mental trauma that we've just discussed there. But there must have been a temptation, Alex, from your friends, your family, to say to you, right, we're through this, keep your head low, don't mention it, don't bring it out into the open. Why do you feel you have to talk about it?
It was interesting, actually. I think I wanted to talk about it when it first went to court and he was found guilty and sent to jail, because I thought, do you know what? I have suffered this for so long and you are not going to influence my life anymore. And when I talked to other people about it, they found a great deal of support in that. So, for example, me saying, little things that I'd learned along the way, like write everything down. Stalking is an example of a case where how you feel is as important as physical and actual evidence. So writing things down and things you won't remember if it's escalated in 3 or 4 years' time, these are very important. And then I didn't want to talk about it again until this week, being National Stalking Awareness Week. Yeah. And I was asked by a number of different outlets, and I ummed and ahed about it a lot last week. And actually, it was my friends who convinced me, as opposed to saying, shut this down, don't do it anymore. They were saying, look at the people who have already spoken out and said, thank you. I didn't know what to do. I thought I was being paranoid. Some of my colleagues haven't taken it seriously. Now you're making me think I should write it down, go to support in the National Stalking Helpline, all those kind of things. They're really, really important. So I think that's what really spurred me on.
And here's another thing. I mean, although you're Alex Lovell and you're the face of the Southwest every night on Points West, you don't have to be on TV to be threatened by something like this, do you?
No, absolutely right, Eamonn. That's such an important point. I think the perception of stalking, the first thing that jumps into our minds is celebrity stalking or Hollywood or circumstances where it's really severe, people hiding in the shadows, hiding outside of people's houses. And of course, when it first starts, it can be very possibly creepy, but you think, is it just being me? Am I overreacting to this? And that's why, on average, it takes up to 100 incidents for a man or a woman to actually report it before it takes for it to become extreme, before they'll report it, because then they realize that this is not okay anymore. But before that, you can still make a note of it. Go to your local police station and say, I'm concerned with this. I just want to make a note of it, so it's kind of out there, or contact one of these advocacy services. It can be someone you know, someone who you used to know, somebody who wants to be a part of your life, somebody who wants to hurt you. It takes so many different forms, but don't belittle it. Trust your instincts. Yeah. If it feels wrong, then if it feels creepy, it's creepy.
It's creepy. But then how do you deal with it? How do you retaliate's the wrong word, but myself, I had a 14-year-old girl absolutely obsessed with me and my family. And you're right, and you go, well, you don't want to bring this to the police. Is this just odd behaviour? And then it went on and on and on. It went on over a couple of years. And I was working at Sky News at the time, and they were absolutely superb. They had a whole department that would deal with safety and security, and ex-police officers in it. And if I had have known, they were there from the outset. And I felt, as a man, to the degree that this girl came on holidays, hoping to find us on holiday, abroad.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and the thing is, and I used to say to my wife, so what happens if I confront her and I say, look, what's going on here, or whatever? Am I charged with something? Do I get involved? I mean, do you get involved? Do you not? Or do you leave it to the police?
Well, I think sometimes people won't want to necessarily call the police. At first you think, well, it's not that bad. I don't want to get that person in trouble, as you just alluded to.
That's what I thought, yeah.
So I think that's why you've got to tell people and make notes of these things. So it's all written down. You're keeping a real, record of everything that's happening. But absolutely telling someone, and I don't just mean close colleagues or work, although obviously it's great if your work can support you. But some of these support charities as well, or even the police who they might have in your area, an advocacy service, for example, just getting that little bit of extra guidance, things that you might not have thought of. I mean, that is a really tricky situation that you had, because of course you've got the age of the young girl is obviously a thing of trust, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But also if you've got a situation where it's different from that, but you still don't quite know how to handle it, people will guide you. And it can be taken out. I'd had it before. I had a stalker before this, unfortunately, who I did know. I used to do a quiz show. He'd been on the quiz show, and he was coming down from the middle of the country down to Bristol taking photographs. So I did know that person, and I asked him in many different ways to leave me alone, thinking that would be enough. Ultimately, it ended up having to be police action.
Alex,
But like you try not to, you know.
Could I ask you, Alex?
Yes.
You must have said to yourself at some stage, is it them or is it me? What am I doing something to attract this attention?
Well, I think in the first instance, when there was the chap I was just mentioning, I did, because I thought, oh, was I kind? Did they take that the wrong way? I think people often feel that, especially if it's an ex-partner or somebody where there could have been a romance and it didn't happen.
Or social media where you share
kind.
information about your family or your life or whatever.
Yeah. And they feel they know you, and
you
you've
open
responded,
the door,
and suddenly you've got a relationship. Yeah. I think with the case of Gordon, absolutely not. There was nothing I could do. I didn't think I knew him, and it turned out I didn't. But I didn't know anything about him, so there was nothing I could have done in that situation.
Do you know, we don't want to go into detail here, but you know his messages to you, they were filthy, they were crude, they were graphic. It's just awful. What advice would you give to someone who feels that this is happening to them? And actually, it may be a family member, it may be an ex, it may, I mean, goodness knows what form this will take. I said in my case, a teenager. What advice would you say, basically?
I would say trust your instinct. If it feels wrong and you are starting to compromise your own life because you are fearful of the effect somebody else is having on it, then you are being harassed or stalked, and the police really will take it seriously. It's very high on the agenda. It's very high. Obviously, it's being discussed constantly in terms of legislation and so on. The police are taking it very seriously, and there's a number of reasons why as well. Obviously, not every stalking incident is going to turn into some terrible catastrophic incident, the kind of which we hear on the news. But a lot of homicides, the perpetrators have previously stalked. So the police know that they need to take this really seriously. And in my experience, and I hope it would be the same, and not just because I'm on the telly, they have taken it very seriously. So please try and trust to the system and write all those things down, and just please trust that if it feels frightening, then, and your life is being compromised, then you need to take action.
Well, I'm glad you're okay. Thank you. Well, thank you for speaking out, and I'm very aware I could talk to you for an hour, but I'm very aware that you've got a show to present in about 40 minutes or so. So I'm going to say goodbye to you, Alex, and really thank you on this National Stalking Week, giving people confidence, giving people the insight, letting them know that they're not alone on this. And thank you very much indeed. A pleasure speaking to you.